Now,
okay, back after a little technical stop. But anyway, the
Baby men.
baby men and, you know, other people who are a little bit at odds with society remind me of stand-up comedians. It's a stereotype that is probably pretty true that stand-ups remember a lot of the wounds they suffered growing up. And that wounding and that contentious relationship with society is replicated in doing stand-up, which is famously a semi kind of hostile thing. You're fighting the audience to take control of their reactions, to get them to laugh, and when they laugh, you kill them. You know, stand-ups internalize the pain that they suffered, and they use it. They get acclimated to it.
blocking the dress, this chair.
Oh, the chair's blocking the dress. You can talk to me. I mean,
But-
we're not
all right.
CBS.
But people, you were talking about who you'd want to babysit.
Yeah, I wouldn't want
And-
somebody dressed as the
Yeah, but
opposite sex to
The deal,
babysit.
I have a theory of evolution that it's been jocks versus nerds throughout all of evolutionary history. The jocks, let's say that the liberals' picture of Brett Kavanaugh.
God, I cannot get your arm right
Well, you're
to
not even
stay put.
painting.
Well, because whenever I try to focus on what I'm supposed to do, you move it.
All right, frickin'. So just take, for the sake of argument, that Brett Kavanaugh is as pictured by the Democrats, that he's this football bro who just, you know, acts on impulse and that he's the jock. And jocks, being more evolutionarily, more physically fit, healthier, more robust, they get what they want without a lot of angst. But then you take somebody who is not perfectly adapted. You know, somebody, you know, who has gender dysphoria, or somebody who's gay, or or any of the extra initials that, you know, LGBTQ, whatever. That person is forced into a certain kind of nerdage. And by nerdage, I mean, has to think about their role in the world. A perfectly adapted lobster just does lobster shit without a lot of thought. It just goes out and grabs stuff with its very healthy pincers, and and jocks are stereotypically not smart. Now I've known a lot of smart jocks, but just the stereotype is no, when you're hot and power, if you're super attractive, super healthy, yeah, you get stuff without thinking about stuff. You take somebody who has suffered a wound, and it can be a gender-based wound, it can be, a gimpy leg, it can be something that puts them at odds with the society that really, supports the perfectly adapted. That person is forced to think about everything. And you end up with thoughtful people. And it might be a reason why gay people are stereotypically super creative, because gay people have had to think about shit like ever since they started getting the vibe, before they were even aware of sexuality, that there was something different about them. And then you have to make all sorts of judgments about what you do about the difference. Do you hide it? Do you bravely, or maybe it's not, you just have to you're forced into thinking about everything all the time. I was nerdy, and I did a lot of thought about my relationship to, my schoolmates and my role in the world. And you have had periods in your life where you decided to concentrate on thinking for long periods at a time. And that informs your creativity. So if you want a babysitter who's thought about stuff, get somebody who's a little bit off, a little bit at odds with society.
Well, there are two points I want to make. First of all, you're confusing three different things. Transvesticism, which is what you are right now, you're a transvestite.
I'm just a guy in a dress.
Well, a man that needs to wear a dress is a transvestite.
I don't need to, but this is episode 74, so like, let's get the frickin' dresses out.
Okay, all right. Well, there is a difference between a just so the audience doesn't think we're idiots. Transgenders want to become the other sex.
Want to live as the other sex.
Or go ahead and have the surgery and become the other sex.
Yeah, but I'd say that's
just let me.
All right, fine.
For God's sake, can I get a sentence off?
Yeah, go
please?
ahead.
Okay, transgenders want to be the other sex. Transvestites want to dress as the other sex and remain everything else the same. A transvestite man can still want to be a man and be married to a woman and have sex with her, but he wants to dress as a woman.
Yeah, but there's a continuum and stuff. Yeah.
A gay person, it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the way they dress.
Yeah.
All right. So these are three different things.
But what they have in common is...
No, wait. One, I would not mind having a gay person take care of my kids. In fact, for all the stereotypical reasons, it might be better. Two, I would be uncomfortable with a transvestite or a transgender because I think they're crazy. Three, part of what you're arguing is a trend in anthropology that says that Darwin was wrong about survival of the fittest. They actually believed that, in a way, it may have been the weak that were the ones that carried on the human species, because the weaker members of the clan or the tribe or whatever had to leave because they were forced out by the strong. And so the weaker members had to leave the trees and they had to think things through. And so the weak became our forebears.
Also under changing conditions.
Right, they were more adaptable.
More flexible.
Whereas the strong didn't need to adapt. They were strong.
Until the volcano erupts and they have to figure out how to escape or whatever.
But they're still in the trees somewhere. You know, they didn't have to evolve because they were so powerful. Mm-hmm. So part of your argument is that being of a perverse self-image or in regards to your gender makes you a more creative person, and I don't think so.
I think it makes you a more thoughtful person.
No, I mean in the same
because
way.
Because what all three of the things you've just listed, gay, transvestite, transgender, all those people are to some extent at odds with the expectations of society. And that friction leads to perhaps creativity and thoughtfulness.
Well, okay, I mean, this is another theory, and that's called the outsider theory.
Yeah.
And I mean, if there is a name for it. And what it basically says is, if you are an outsider, like the Jews or like the homosexuals, you're less likely to accept society's norms. You're more likely to be a critic. So as a result, Jews became great comedians. Homosexuals are known for being witty. So that's the outsider theory, and I don't know that it's worth changing my society into this sort of confused transvesticism in order to get that. I think that eccentricity will go on regardless of whether people are outside, as you say.
All right. Well, I'd argue this.
I think people will continue to be thoughtful.
All right. I'd argue this, that thanks to genes and thanks to nature and nurture, genes and environment, people have different settings for all sorts of different characteristics. Height, tendency to be chunky or skinny, the resistance to disease, and it seems reasonable to me that there would be a certain range of orientations, not just with regard to preferred sexual or romantic partners, but with one's at-homeness with the appearance of one's gender. It's a setting that has some flexibility to it. So it doesn't automatically make somebody crazy that they are not perfectly lined up with their genetic gender.
Well, there are two different issues, okay? The first is fashion. And because you mentioned this, the Scots, and if you come from a society where men wear dresses, they're masculine-looking dresses usually. There's still a difference between male and female. So there is fashion, and you talked about the hippie movement, or maybe I thought about the hippie movement. And during the hippie movement, men began to wear long hair. And they were bullied as much as a man today would be wearing a dress, a floral dress. So fashion changes. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is when somebody deliberately goes against the norms for his gender. So in other words, if we all decided as a society that women would wear red and men would wear black, then if you were a man and you insisted on wearing red, I would think that there was something wrong with you. Because it's just, if you identify with those characteristics that are female and you want to display that to the public in a sort of, a display of yourself for whatever reason, I think there's something wrong with you.
That puts these people in a whole separate category where you've decided that gayness isn't an illness, but that transness is an illness.
Yes, transness is an illness. Gayness is so common that it's in every society. I mean, here's the thing.
Yep.
I'm not trying to be PC here. I'm saying that gayness has always been with us everywhere in the world, and it always will be, barring something I can't think of right now.
Gayness wasn't even a thing until like 150 years ago, when people decided there was a difference between straightness and gayness.
Well, and I maintain that it was during the Bible when they decided that, during the laws of Deuteronomy and Leviticus. But my point is that for a man to think that he needs to chop his winkle off,
but that
and yes, transgenders do want to do that. Don't deny it.
Some.
Yeah, okay, that person is crazy. I'm sorry, that's a crazy thing. And in fact, it would only be an insanity possible today now that we have the operation. In other words, you didn't have that 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, but you've always had people who've lived as the opposite gender.
You have, and they were crazy.
No,
I mean, there are things you can do that will make you crazy, Rick. In other words, if for example, I decided to wear a chicken head, if I went to the Halloween store and I got a head the shape of a chicken, and I put it on my head and I walked around, I could do it. I mean, and there have always been people that wanted to wear a mask on their head if you go to Africa, but I would be crazy. And so what I'm saying is doing something
it depends on your reasons to wear a chicken head.
No, that's the whole point. That is the whole point. There is no good reason. And I'm saying there's no good reason for a man to want to wear women's clothing. The reason that you would want to wear women's clothing is because you're valuing things that are peculiar. It's because you're crazy.
No, it's because I mean, some people may do it for, I mean, people do all sorts of things for a variety of reasons. But I would say the majority of people who are
transvestite.
Yeah.
We're talking about men that want to wear women's clothing. Transvestite.
Yeah, but I mean, there's an overlap between transvestism and transgender.
Well, you could say this. You could say all transgenders are transvestite, but not all transvestites are transgenders.
Yeah.
Okay.
But most of the people who are doing that are sincere in wanting to embrace gender that is not their genetic gender.
And that is crazy.
Why?
Well, supposing I said I want to be a leopard,
but
you'd say I was crazy.
Well,
but someday there may be an operation that can turn me into a leopard.
I can tell you that 100
and then
years
I would say that in the future, when they have an operation that can turn people into leopards, I would say, I know we can do this operation, but don't become fixated on that because it's a bad idea. You'd be crazy.
Well, in the future, we'll be able to assume whatever forms we want with increasing ease.
Right.
I mean, we can already do that to some extent in cyberspace, in a Second Life type situation where you can pick whatever skin or avatar you want.
Yeah, that's not the same as playing a different role in a. I mean, actually, that is the same as playing the role of Chun-Li in Street Fighter.
Yeah, but
a lot of guys like to be Chun-Li in Street Fighter. That's not the same, Rick.
Yeah, but beyond wanting to be a leopard or wear a chicken head,
yeah,
later I was going to talk about what a pain in the ass sex drive is, how unstoppable it is. That I heard a story, I don't know if it's true, but it sounds like it could be true, that Gandhi, in his later years, to fight, like I guess one tenet of Buddhism, you can tell me if I'm wrong, is to try to get over earthly desires.
Okay.
Right? Is that
sure.
All right. So in that kind of way, Gandhi was trying to fight earthly temptation so he'd get young, hot girls to sleep with him naked and to tempt the shit out of him so he could fight temptation.
Story of my life, by the way, and I'm not going to elaborate. Okay, go ahead.
So Gandhi would sleep with naked hotties as it was like doing abstinence push-ups. He was trying to deny earthly desire.
Okay.
And I noticed, like today, I was with a lot of women, and there was a woman that stood out, and it was a constant distraction. Like, I've been married forever, and between my wife and pictures on the internet, my sexual needs are met. And I wouldn't want to engage in anything extracurricular. It would be incredibly destructive and inconsiderate and just ridiculous. Yet I can't avoid, when I'm exposed to women I consider attractive or super attractive, I can't avoid, like, my brain, there's just this foundation of horniness in my brain.
I knew he was coming around. Thank God, Rick. Is it my influence?
I bet.
I'll share a foxhole with you, Rick.
Yeah, well.
Good man.
When I bounced a gay bar, it was easier to hook up with a woman in a gay bar than it was in straight bars, because their guard was down. I would bet similarly that there are guys who wear dresses who do some hooking up.
Rick,
I don't.
where do you stand on gay marriage? And the same question for Lance.
Wait. You know what? I interrupted his story with kind of an insensitive joke.
Well,
I want to know what your point was.
Most humans are super horny because we come from 4 billion generations of organisms that manage to reproduce sexually. And the ones who weren't horny, the organisms and the species that weren't horny, they died off because they didn't get laid and they didn't make the next generation. So our sex drive is like one of the strongest drives.
But what does this have to do with the story you were telling about you saw a woman to distract you?
So like the horniness just doesn't stop.
Okay.
Even though it would be convenient if it did. And it's a hardwired drive. And it makes sense that and it's a tricky drive because you get hungry, you eat. You need to breathe. If you try to not breathe, you'll pass out, and then in your unconscious state, you'll probably start breathing again. You get thirsty, you drink water. But doing the sex thing is complicated. You got to engage in like mating rituals. You got to get the thing and the other thing. It's a little more complicated. And it's also against the interests of the individual. It puts you at risk as an individual organism because for the good of the species. And so it's a tricky drive. It's super powerful because it needs to be because it doesn't have to do with your survival. It has to do with it's getting you to work against yourself for the survival of the species. So it makes sense that this is a complicated engine, a powerful and complicated engine in everybody's head.
Okay, look.
But hold on. So it makes sense that it is going to manifest itself in a variety of ways, not all of which are non-transgender, non-transsexual, and non-gay. You're going to see a variety of things because it's not a perfectly pinned down drive. It's a complicated thing, and with complicated things, you're going to get variation. And variation includes transvestism, transgender, and gayness. Right. And a bunch of variation in heterosexual behaviors. There's a bunch of and I think society is just increasingly acknowledging the variation.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you're making my argument because way back in Lance versus Rick #1, I tried to convince you that the sexual orientation of a society is malleable. And you refused to believe me.
Well,
and what I tried to say to you way back in Lance versus Rick #1 was that the Jewish tradition decided that we were going to make society heterosexual.
You want to put everybody in Bible jail.
Okay, and because the ancient Jews realized what you're saying. They knew that. They knew that people could be, that the sex drive was malleable and that it was influenced by the society, not just by the genitals and not just by the primitive parts of the brain. That actually societal approval and disapproval has an effect on the sexuality of the people in it.
All right, so we're at a point where we should move on to a lot of other topics.
Wait a minute. I just want to say what an exquisite. It took 1.5 years, but you've exquisitely proven my point. Yes, Rick, that's exactly true. Society has recognized that humans can go in a lot of variations on a continuum of sexuality. And that now society, you want to live in a society that says, go ahead and be transvestite. And I want to live in a society that says, ideally, you will be heterosexual, but those who can't be will be treated with dignity.
Yeah, and so, okay, you want to have people in mostly in Bible jail, but you want to, give gay people a pass because they might be up to 8 or 10% of the population, and then even more minority, smaller percentages, you're like, nah, those people are crazy. And I say, let's just not put people in Bible jail. Let's not have people bullied by gym teachers anymore.
But it's not a matter of, I'm not doing this because I think God said for us to do it.
Oh, you think things work better when people are in Bible jail?
No, I think people, for secular reasons, it's better for society to be predominantly heterosexual. And that it's better for society for men not to wear dresses, and that it's better for society for human beings to stick with the sex organs that they were born with. That's my so it's not because God said anything. This is not a religious argument. I think society works better within heterosexuality. Now, if you want to talk about God, then sure, I can argue religious.
I think we can move on.
Those of you that are religious,
I made my point. In the future, rebellious teens are going to get popped into a vat, and they're going to come out looking like T-Rexes.
Yeah. Listen, could you do me a favor, because
I keep moving the snake around?
Well, no. Your dress is casting pink shadows onto your arm.
Yeah.
And as we both know,
you want me to change out of the dress?
Rick is basically green.
Yeah. All
so
right.
it's hard enough trying to.
You want to break, and I'll put on pants.
It's hard enough trying to knock sense into you and paint this picture.
All right.
And since you're wearing the dress, if you can just real quick, you can just, where do you stand on gay marriage and the
I'm fine with gay marriage, and I'm happy that people younger than us are growing up in a way that makes them have, because like Lance and I have had a discussion, it's probably gone 40 minutes now, and we've probably said like 80 things that are a little bit wrong or ignorant about LGBTQ. Because we're old guys, we're dumb about this stuff, we have all these ingrained biases, and it's good that younger people are growing up without it, because we're going to have a more equitable society that makes fewer people miserable and allows more people to maximize certain potentials, the potential for the pursuit of happiness, creativity, not spending decades like grinding, painfully grinding their gender or sexual orientation against Bible jail. I mean, this movie is coming out in like 2 weeks, Bohemian Rhapsody, and to a large extent, it's this super creative guy who spends so much time like in misery, or wasting his time spinning his wheels trying to mesh with societal expectations, time that could have been better spent following his talent.
Do you think men should dress as babies and walk around the street in diapers?
If they feel a compelling need to, or even if they want.
Would you think they were crazy?
No.
Would you want a man?
No. I've seen. Hold on. Everybody who goes. I've Googled a lot of stuff, and I've seen pictures of the man babies.
Okay.
And I to some extent, I feel like a lot of the man babies do it because it gives them a certain amount of weird gratification.
Okay,
it's almost boner orientation.
Great.
It's like
great. Would you want a man baby to take care of your kids when you leave house?
I'd have to interview the man baby.
What if he was perfectly normal but dressed in a diaper? What if he seemed very convincing but he was dressed in a diaper and insisted on speaking baby talk to you?
I don't know if I could deal with the baby talk. That might be annoying.
Okay, so there are things that are unhealthy that a person can do.
Well, I don't like. But if say I go, hey, dude, can you not do the baby talk when we're talking? And you'd be like, because it's just a personal bias of mine.
Well, could I say, could you not wear a dress? It's a personal bias of mine.
Yeah, if I'm posing for you, you're going to make me change out of the dress because it screws up the...
No. But what I'm saying is, why are you a bigot against men dressed as babies? Why is it that I have to accept men wearing dresses, but you don't have to accept men wearing diapers?
I didn't say that.
Well, you just did. You said you'd have to interview the guy. Why can't you just say, by God, I would fight anybody that tries to deny a baby man the right to take care of my child? Why don't you say manfully and forcefully?
Freaking ridiculous.
No, because you're confused.
You're
confused.
Hold
That's
on,
why you can't answer.
stop. I'd have to interview anybody who's going to take care of our child.
Okay, and what could man baby say that would be different from a perfectly ordinary person? Why would man baby come up with something that what could he say that would make him different? Anything?
No, wait. So you
have to interview everyone. You see, you're dodging the question.
No, I'm telling you.
You're dodging the question.
Let me answer the question. Here's how the interview would go with man baby.
Mm-hmm.
We'd have like 18 people in because we'd be picky.
I think we're going to go to the next.
All right. But, all right, just quickly, because we're eating up a lot of time on bullshit here. But I'd answer.
Go.
All right, so let me rephrase the question because it's really clear. You're saying all you would do is an interview because you'd interview anybody. But that's just dodging the question. You know that you would feel differently about man baby than somebody dressed normally.
I've been asked to dress as man baby for this part of the discussion.
I didn't ask you to. Well, I think you asked us. You said it would make you feel more comfortable and that you wanted to do the rest of the show in baby talk.
No. Our very gifted director suggested man baby.
I think you look adorable like that. Coochie coochie? You look adorable?
Yeah.
Don't you?
All right. So
you want to vote for Trump, don't you? Come on.
No.
No?
No. But I do rock a diaper.
All right.
So you're going to make a point about man baby.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I would ask man baby questions about is this what's up with the man baby deal? And sorry to to get personal, but you're going to be taking care of our kid, and man baby would offer his explanation as to why he needs to live this way. And I go, well, have you taken care of kids before? And has dressing as a baby been any kind of a problem?
And you know that there isn't a single couple anywhere on earth that would let man baby take care of their kid. So the answer would be no. No one was stupid enough to let me take care of their kid. So, I mean, the point is that there's a difference. You would not allow it. Carol wouldn't allow it.
Between
the lovely Carol would not allow such a thing.
There's a big difference between man babyism and people who are reasonable people or not so reasonable people who are trans in some way.
Who are transvestite.
Yeah.
No, there isn't.
Yeah, there is. Let's move on.
Wait a minute. But there isn't any difference. There isn't any difference.
That's ridiculous.
It's just you're bigoted against man baby, and you're saying that people are bigoted against dressing as women. And there is no difference. They're both doing the same thing. They both have a perverse pleasure in flaunting society's norms.
Flouting. People make
flaunting means you're
celebrating.
And flouting
means defying.
See what happens? You argue with the guy that got a perfect score on the Sats, and he wins every argument.
All right.
He wins every argument with vocabulary.
All right, let's move on to what's the next topic?
Libya.
Okay. Oh, I just wanted to. You were always yelling about Obama and Libya, and I just wanted to do some checking up to see if what you're yelling about is accurate. And so I read up a little bit, and I found some stuff, and what you've been yelling is mostly accurate. Slavery is back in Libya to some extent. Libya is a conduit for refugees coming north through Africa to try to.
Don't move your arm.
Okay, it's the last stop before they try to cross the Mediterranean to get to Europe to be refugees under better circumstances. But Libya being a failed state means that once the refugees get there, they're subject to all sorts of abuse that I guess should be yelled about. Obama himself, in a 2016 interview, said that not having any follow-up after taking out Gaddafi was the greatest mistake of his presidency. And the same story that reported that said that privately, Obama referred to the aftermath as a shit show. So, I mean, he's well aware that he fucked up Libya, though what I also found out is that the operation to establish a no-fly zone during the Libyan civil war, which then had mission creep into taking out Gaddafi, was the work of a coalition of 17 nations, most of them NATO nations. And that Obama, while saying it was his greatest mistake, also said that his biggest partners in the operation, England and France, also dropped the ball. Which is not to excuse Obama, but yeah, all right, what else? No, hold on. Let me say my stuff, and you can attack all the points. Gaddafi was a bad guy, and we'd been trying to take him out off and on since 1986 when Reagan tried to take him out after he shot down a U.S. commercial jet, passenger jet, killing like 270 just people who wanted to fly someplace. What else? There's an article in The Atlantic that draws parallels that says that America is really bad at follow-through, and that our three most recent huge wars, we quickly knocked down the bad guy and then had no plans for what came after. The three wars being Afghanistan, Iraq II, and Libya. And that in each case we hadn't adequately followed through, so we pulled defeat out of victory.
Well, Rick, I don't know how the man with the second highest IQ in America can say everything you just said to me and then tell me that I should vote for Hillary and Obama. I mean, they are the architects of all the failures you just described.
Let me ask you this. Hold on, let me ask you this. If you wouldn't vote for Hillary or Obama, does that also mean you wouldn't vote for G.W. Bush or Dick Cheney or Rumsfeld, who were kind of the architects, or really were the architects of a lack of follow-through in Iraq and Afghanistan?
No, because, look, Rick, I got to be honest with you, and I'm normally not this honest, okay? But I don't know how you failed to comprehend the logical difference between the two situations.
3.
Okay. The Bush and Cheney were sitting in a country that had just been attacked, and they felt that it was important to defeat America's enemies. Now, we can get into a 3-hour argument about whether the Iraq War was justified.
Well, let me say this. Afghanistan needed to be knocked down because that's where a lot of the badness came from.
Right. Well, then you just made my argument on the first of the wars. Okay? So now we just have to talk about Iraq, but we don't. What I need you to understand with that magnificent mind that God gave you is that there's a difference between decapitating the government of Libya and then just forgetting about it, leaving it in complete chaos to be taken over by terrorist groups.
Well, they didn't just forget about it.
Well, yeah, that's what they did, Rick.
Well, there was a whole timeline after 2011 that maybe it wasn't they should have probably put more boots on the ground. But there was a whole, I mean, it's ongoing. For the past 7 years, they've been trying to help Libya ineffectually, but still trying to form a government.
Rick, come on.
I mean, there's a reason Benghazi happened.
Rick, this is pathetic. You're trying to say that something that Obama admits was the worst mistake of his presidency was actually a success?
No.
That he's doing his best to solve it?
No, he didn't do his best. That's why he said it was a mistake.
So it was a mistake, and it was a mistake afterwards, too, because he didn't solve the problem. So it was doubly a mistake.
Well, I'm not sure it was a mistake to take the world was, much of the world, there was this whole alliance of 17 countries.
I know, everybody hated Gaddafi. We're not arguing about that. Rick,
and
you're making a false equivalence. You're dressed as a baby, and you're trying to tell me that fighting Afghanistan was the same thing as toppling Libya.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying Afghanistan needed
So now
the Taliban, hold on, let me say what I'm saying. The Taliban needed to be knocked down.
Okay.
But what this article I read, that I think I agree with, is that, well, there's two things going on. One is Afghanistan needed more follow-through. Two, historically, any amount of follow-through in Afghanistan has never been enough. We're still at war in Afghanistan. Okay. It's the longest war in American history, 17 years.
I don't care.
All right. But
it's irrelevant to me.
But yeah, Iraq's for sure needed more follow-through.
Okay. So what you're trying to tell me is that the fight against Iraq and the 3 or 4 years afterwards, where Bush successfully put down civil unrest, is the same as Obama destroying Libya and not being able to do anything about it. And it's not the same.
They have a lot of things in common.
No, actually they don't.
Because
Rick,
hold on.
You won't let me speak.
But because you just said something that's not true. You said that after Saddam fell, that there was 2 or 3 years of trying to put down civil unrest.
Yes.
But the civil unrest started in earnest because Brennan, appointed by Bush, who didn't even speak Arabic, Brennan fired all the Baathists, all the people. He fired the entire army, and he fired anybody who was in the same political party as Saddam.
I'm aware
and those
of this.
people ran amok.
Okay, listen to me, Rick. We're now doing the argument you said you didn't want to have, or we said we didn't want to have.
All right, so go ahead.
Listen to me. I'm going to respond to the article that you gave me. Mm-hmm. All right? I'm not going to respond to the entire history of the Middle East conflicts. You made an article. You made reference to an article that said, this is, by the way, how you debate. You argue about a specific point.
Okay.
You said that America, according to this article, is poor at follow-through. We're good at defeating the enemy. We're bad at follow-through. I'm saying no. Obama was bad at follow-through. The Democrats are bad at follow-through. Because George Bush defeated Iraq, he defeated Afghanistan, and he left Libya alone. Don't interrupt me. Then he pacified Afghanistan. Afghanistan was not a particular problem when Obama took office. He engaged in a civil war. He fought an uprising against the Iraqis that lasted from, I think, 2003 to roughly 2009 or 9. And when he handed Iraq over to Obama, it was pacified. It was pacified to the point, don't interrupt me, that Obama actually made a speech that I've referred to a dozen times in this show, where Obama said Iraq is pacified. So it was his lack of follow-through. It was the Democrats' lack of follow-through. that caused those three catastrophes. It was not America's lack of follow-through. It was the candidates you voted for. Moreover, it was Hillary Clinton and Obama that specifically drew up the Libyan policy. They are the ones that caused the catastrophe in Libya. And after they destroyed the government of Libya, they had several years to correct the chaos that they created, but they did not do so. So, you're wrong, and you're wrong.
All right, let me respond. Bush started the Civil War that took 6 years to clean up. And the Civil War started because there was no plan for after they took down Saddam. Now, Afghanistan's a different story. Afghanistan has a millennia-long history of being impossible to govern singly, to establish a single government that has dominion and doesn't misbehave.
Can I respond?
Well, hold on. So Afghanistan's been up and down. We did the surge. There have been various troop levels. Afghanistan's never been completely pacified.
But you did say it was justified.
Afghanistan
4 minutes ago.
Yeah, I said it was justified, but if I read an article that says that they could have had a better plan for after the Taliban was easy to knock down, relatively easy. But to keep Afghanistan in line has proven over many centuries.
No, it proved to Obama.
No, but also Bush.
No, under Bush, Afghanistan was pacified. It was under the Obama administration that Afghanistan started to get out of control again.
Well, Afghanistan was the earliest of these wars. It started in 2001.
Okay.
Now it's 2018.
Yes.
So roughly 7 or 8 years were under G.W. Bush.
And it was pacified.
From time to time, depending on how many troops they had stationed there. And under Obama, it was pacified from time to time, depending on how many troops they put in there. But it's still going on.
Okay. Rick, this is why you don't hire a physicist to run a government, because you don't understand history. Now, I'm going to explain this to you again, and don't interrupt me. When the first thing that the Egyptians realized thousands of years before Christ was that after you defeat an enemy, you have two choices. You can kill everyone in the territory, or you can put up garrisons. So the ancient Egyptians realized that they should put up garrisons in areas that they've defeated, and that became the Egyptian Empire. The Romans were masters of this. The Romans set up garrisons and camps and walled cities in areas that they conquered. Because if you don't do that, you got a choice. Again, you can annihilate everybody in the area, or whoever you defeated will come back. They're not going to just go away. Now, when Bush defeated Saddam, a lot of Democrats, a lot of badly informed, foolish Democrats say, but he had no plan. And there's a good reason for that. Because you don't know what the enemy is going to do.
But you don't...
Don't interrupt me. Okay. The enemy could pacify themselves. They might welcome you. A lot of countries did that. For example, the Japanese pacified themselves after World War II. And the reason is that the Emperor of Japan told the Japanese people, who were extremely obedient, to cooperate with the Americans. So it was a fairly pacified country. The Germans, on the other hand, were not cohesive in their reaction to the American occupiers. So the American army had to occupy Germany, and for the next 4 years, up until 1949, there were sporadic attacks by Nazi dead-enders that wouldn't give up. So even in 1949, there were Americans still being assassinated in Germany. No, I gotta finish my point, Mr. Physicist, because you don't know history. When Bush defeated Saddam Hussein, he left a force there that he hoped would be adequate. It proved that the Iraqi forces had their own ideas about what they were going to do. And rebellion and civil unrest ensued, which was normal. After 3 or 4 years, he pacified it. Okay? Now, and then I'm going to finish, I'm going to wrap things up. As I've been saying to you in all 70 of our episodes, all forces from the Egyptians to the Romans, to the Americans in Japan, to the Americans in Germany, to the Americans under Bush Jr., leave a pacifying force of troops in the area after they've put down the rebellion of the dead enders. And when they do that, you don't withdraw them, because then the Hittites or the Gauls, or in this case the Iraqi dead enders, will come back and they'll fight. In this case, it became ISIS. But Obama, like yourself, didn't understand this. Or he did understand it and he just wanted us to lose.
So
I hope some of you are willing to contribute money for these lectures, because I deserve a little cash for this.
What you can do, you can send us all money if you want.
Yeah. I won't accept any food unless it's wrapped in cellophane.
Well, okay, send it to Rick Rosner.
Don't, it has to be something
Send
wrapped.
money to rickrosner@hotmail.com. That's my PayPal. And
I'm the one doing the lectures.
All right, so we'll split it. So Google troop levels over the history of the Afghan war and the history of, we still have people over in Iraq now, right? 5,000 people, 3,000, 2,000, what do we got?
Well, we just defeated ISIS because of you guys.
How many, but we still have people over in Iraq.
Trump doesn't tell us the number.
Oh,
anyway. Another good thing that a Democrat didn't understand. Trump's trying to win the war, so he didn't tell the Democrats or ISIS how many men he was putting over there. But we don't know. It's a secret.
But you can probably get estimates.
Obama told us the number.
Yeah, you can probably get estimates. So, but the deal is that Bush, you fail to see any parallels between Bush and Iraq and Obama and Libya. Bush sends over this Brennan guy who decides to fire the entire army. And we're going to move on right after this. And that army becomes the nucleus of the Civil War. He fires all the Baathists. It would be like if we
fired the Nazis, which is what we did after World War II.
No, it would be more
yes,
like,
sometimes you do that, Rick.
Yeah, but I'm not sure.
In fact, sometimes when you take over the South, you fire the Confederate leaders.
All right. So anyway, all the Baathists, all the party, they're probably like 20 parties in Iraq, but the ruling party was the Baathists. So if you held office in Iraq, you were fired. If you were in the army in Iraq after Saddam fell, you were fired. So you had all these loose cannons running around, and they formed the nucleus for a shitload of terrorism. So I'm saying there's a parallel, so's the Atlantic Magazine, between our adventure in Iraq and the current disaster in Libya. All right, what's the next topic?
Do you want to
Wait, can we take a break?
Yeah.
Can you say something? We're going to take a break and baby talk just since you're dressed like a
No, I'm not going to. No, I'm not.
Come
No. I mean, dog talk's the best I'll do. Who's a good boy? Who's a good director? Who is?
All right.
That's all you're going to get. All right, I'm going to put my pants on.